I want to close on this. For someone like me, it's somewhat daunting news to say that these kinds of abilities, things like design, things like story, things like empathy, because they're hard to outsource and hard to automate, because they deliver on these new demands out of an abundant age, that these abilities are the ones that matter most. I find this somewhat daunting because I'm not particularly good at these things. But I think we should, I want to say fear not, but I should say fear less. Because I think that these abilities here are fundamentally human abilities, that they're part of what it means to be human, and that for some of us, they're like muscles that have atrophied, and we just need to work them back into shape. And I want to give you one example of the potential that I think all of us have. I decided to test this proposition myself by learning how to draw. We're moving to this more world that prizes more right brain abilities. I have very little in the way of artistic capabilities. I'm going to learn how to draw. So I took a 5-day drawing course in New York City called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, based on a famous book by that name, taught by the author of that book's son, Brian Baumeister. On day 1, Brian says, Dan, draw your self-portrait. And here it is. Now, that's not very good, right? Take a look at that if you can bear it. All right, what do you think of the eyebrows, for instance? Oops, there are none. What about the neck? Oops, there is none. I'm not, as you discovered over the last half hour, a very exciting guy, but I'm not literally two-dimensional. There's no depth there. Take a look at those lips. No one's lips really look like that. I basically popped in a symbol of lips. I might as well have just written L-I-P-S. Take a look at my eyes, not up there, and my eyes in my real head. My eyes are halfway between the top of my head and the bottom of my chin, right? They were a half hour ago, so I hope that they still are. Where are my eyes here? My eyes are up in my forehead because my nostrils have colonized the middle of my face. So Brian says to me, Dan, the reason you can't draw is because you can't see. You're not seeing anything. You're drawing remembered symbols. You're not seeing anything. You're essentially writing your face. You're drawing out of the left side of your brain. So over the next few days, he started teaching me about things I never knew about, never thought about before. Light and shadow. Never noticed it before. Proportions. Everything is physically proportional to everything else. Relationships. Everything stands in a physical relationship to everything else. Negative space. The space between space. So if you look at this thing right here, that triangle in the A, that's negative space. You look at this kind of gray D in the middle of this green D. That's negative space. I never heard. There's space between space? No one ever told me that. How cool is that? No one ever said anything. Scales are falling off of my eyes. What an interesting world we live in now that I can actually see it. On day 5, Brian says, Dan, draw your self-portrait. And here it is. Now, that's not great. Okay, that's not great. And I've got this kind of weird cubist thing going on here. But let's pretend we're at the ophthalmologist. All right? Better 1 or 2? Better 1 or 2? So I feel like if someone like me can make this kind of progress in such a short time, there's really unliberated symphonic right brain capacity in all of us if we just call these kinds of abilities out of hiding. So on that, I'll wrap up. Declan.